Right, so it's a wrap for today's mid-year review of the budget, the 2019 budget by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, and it's been a very interesting one. Obviously, new taxes involved, so be prepared to start paying more for your petroleum products, diesel or petrol, and like the minority leader said, the hello tax. Be prepared to pay more for your phone calls, all things being equal, after obviously it's passed into law, and the Finance Minister is going to seek approval to spend more. But apart from that, what else can we learn from this presentation of the mid-year review of the budget? And my guest, William Demisia, is still here with me. My name is Philip Nanfuri, and we are going to have a bit of an overview of what has gone on today. We're going to break things down, make them simple for you and I to understand. So, William, first and foremost, a lot of things have gone on today. You are a man of taxes. You are a man of taxes, and you've seen the new taxes come into play. What else can we learn from today's proceedings?
Well, thank you. I think the Minister of Finance, told us in no plain terms that we are not performing as well as we would do in terms of tax revenue, and the economy is not growing as we expected it would. And so there's been some revision of the growth rate in GDP. He basically attributed it to a broader base. That is why he says that it will not be growing as we expected it. Expenditure would rise than we normally projected for the 2019 budget. Revenue would drop by about 0.01%. We are looking at the increases in taxes coming.
Hold on to your thoughts for me. We want to cross over to my colleague George Rafi, who is on the floor of Parliament, or who is in Parliament, I beg your pardon, and is going to speak to some members there and some guests in there. So let's listen to what George has to say.
Per the PFM Act, Section 18. But unfortunately, what we saw today is a new budget, not a review. I say this because, you see, the government failed in the main budget to introduce any revenue measure. But in fact, during the media review, he's introduced new revenue measures. The expenditure has totally been overhauled. Missing targets everywhere. So for me, let me say that I'm really disappointed in the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in the sense that there's a very government that promised all of us that they are going to move from taxation to production. Today, they are moving from production to more taxes. And some of the taxes that I've seen here, they are nuisance taxes. Let me take you to some of the tax lines.
Hold on, but first one on the bit about you not seeing it as a media review of the fiscal policy budget. There were two things. First was the media review of estimates and the supplementary budget. Don't you think that the window supplementary budget gave the minister some door, actually, to do these adjustments for this fiscal policy?
No, you see, the supplementary budget simply means that the government is going to borrow more and tax more. That is what. And out of the borrowings, that needs to be spent. And then the taxation that also needs to be spent. The minister basically asked that they give him 6.3 billion more. That 6.3 billion more, he's going to increase debt by 3.6 billion and do additional tax measures of about 2 billion and non-tax revenue of about 1 billion. So that is what he did. In the nutshell, that is the conclusion. I can point you to various pages of the document that really says that, and we all know where it's coming from.
But some will say that would it automatically translate into our debt shooting up if there are supposed to be some realignment of expenditure? Would that necessarily translate? Because if you look at the budget deficit, in terms of the increment in percentage terms, some will say it may not be that significant.
It is, unfortunately. If you look at Appendix 62 of the document, page 62 of the document, it's there clearly. The government has decided to change its net borrowings from 15 billion to 18.6 billion. So you could see that debt is going to increase spread from the projection by about 3.6 billion. That is coming from borrowing. Apart from that, they told us a number of tax measures that they want to increase, plus non-tax revenue, like selling of the electromagnetic, all of that. So if you are to add the cumulative effect of taxes and debt and non-tax revenue, will give you the 6.8 billion.
You raised concerns about taxes and a bit about a government that came on a campaign promise of less taxation, more production. Now, yes, that was a promise. Faced with this challenge that some revenue are still needed to fund infrastructure projects, what should be the plan B to deal with this?
Even before you go to plan B, this government actually signed a social contract with us. it was heavily led by the vice president. He was the same person who promised all of us, the people of this country, that they are going to move from taxation to production. In his first budget, he was here celebrating amidst pomp and pageantry, trying to tell all of us that they are going to remove nuisance taxes and they're going to make do of their promise. Today, what are we seeing? They're imposing new taxes. And ironically, the person who championed the tax removal is conspicuously missing in Parliament today. Well, what other reason? He's in this country. We know he's in this country. He has never missed a budget review or a budget itself. So what is happening? He's here. Well, we know the president is in town, and we know he's in town. He's running away from his own shadows. But let me say that, George, it is sad for the government to increase the communication service tax by 50%. They said that they are not only increasing the communication service tax by 50%, but they're also going to broaden it to include all services that they provide. What this simply means is that they are going to tax data. They are going to tax data. They are going to now tax WhatsApp. Because you use data for WhatsApp. They are going to tax Facebook. They are going to tax Twitter. So for me, it's a tax on WhatsApp. It's a WhatsApp tax.
That is what you have established.
No, that is what it is.
Based on
that is what, yeah, exactly. That is what it is. So they are going to tax WhatsApp, tax Facebook, tax Instagram and Twitter. Okay. And that is going to give him a cumulative revenue of about 115 million Ghana cedis for the last half of the year. So cumulatively per annum, about 200 million Ghana cedis on a straight line. Let me also say that what saddens me is the tax on fuel product. Yeah. That is really sad, because we all know that if you are to increase fuel product, it's the impact is across the economy. It affects even foodstuffs. It affects lorry fares and so many other things. Yeah. Now, based on what he said he's going to increase the energy sector levies by 21%. Yeah. 21%. You agree with me that the energy sector levy for the year 2019, they are projecting about 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. So 25% is going to give them about 735 million Ghana cedis additional revenue. If you were to do the mathematics and compute it, we can comfortably say that petrol is going to go up by about 90 pesos to 1 cedi. Diesel is going to go up by about 90 pesos to 1 cedi. LPG is going to go up by about 1 cedi, 40 pesos. I think it's a bit too much, and it's something that we will have to point the government to it. That is too much.
The minister's presentation,
yes,
he raised issues about this take-or-pay energy contract.
Correct.
That is one of the major reasons why some of these levies have to be introduced to deal with that challenge. What do you make of that problem,
Judge,
or the argument that we couldn't have gotten here, we wouldn't have gotten here
I disagree.
if your government hadn't signed this contract?
I disagree with the minister. Two reasons. One, we all know that this is an administration that not long ago they decided to introduce a subsidy, and this was very much collaborated by Mr. Gabriel Tredakon in his tweet that government is paying subsidy about 5.1 billion Ghana cedis. Subsidy. So if you yourself decide to give the people of this country subsidy, and then you come out to tax the users of petroleum product, what does that mean? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent government policy, and, excuse my French, incompetent.
You don't think that those contracts that you sign is one of the major reasons why it's causing this? George, that is what the minister is saying.
You see, for me, I will not accept that blanket statement. I was expecting the minister to give us detail, to say that, in the month of January, we were expecting 1 billion. Out of the billion, take or pay is about 200 million, and so we're forced to pay. Anything more than that, I beg to say that that is absolutely not acceptable. These taxes are not called for, but you see, they are increasing the hardships on the ordinary Ghanaian, and we should be careful. George, truth be told, these taxes on fuel product is going to increase hardships on the ordinary Ghanaian, and it's something that we've warned this administration that they shouldn't go there. They should make do of their own social contract that they've signed with us.
Honorable, I asked you a question about the Plan B as well.
Yes.
You criticize these measures that he has introduced. What do you think is the Plan B to deal with this challenge?
Plan B, we don't have revenue problems. We have expenditure problems. The president promised too much. The government is actually undertaking too much frivolous expenditures. I think they should cut some of those expenditures. Particularly, let me give you an example. You have ministers almost 190 something, almost close to one district, one minister. Can't you cut that kind of expenditure? It's absolutely not called for. There's certain expenditure. I'll give you an example. The Ministry of Transport, for instance, not long ago under President Mahama, there were 2 people running the ministry. You've decided to decouple that ministry into 3 different ministries, and you are giving it to 7 other ministers to do it. In terms of, productivity too, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So what is going on in that sector? It's a bit too much.
I want to bring your honorable colleague also in that. Honorable is saying that based on you're going against your own social contract of trying to concentrate on production than taxation. What do you make of the fact that the argument that you're deceiving Ghanaians, you are not telling Ghanaians the truth, and you've gone back on what you promised Ghanaians?
I don't agree with my learned senior, I should say. Why? Because I don't think we have reneged on our promise to Ghanaians that our government is aimed at building a prosperous economy, which is private sector led. That is what we are pursuing. But in all of this process, you can see today it's been obvious that, look, our expenses and our physicals have been derailed. They've been derailed basically because of the structures and what we inherited from them. Today we are talking take or pay. It's costing the economy $1 billion. All of this will have to be paid for. And if they have to be paid for, the monies will have to come from somewhere. Today we are talking about taxation. Look at the number of taxes that we have actually reduced, 17 of them. Now it's gotten to a point where Ghanaians want social services. My people in Niboeta, my people in Nakwetima are looking for roads. They are asking for their roads to be fixed. And for those roads to be fixed, monies will have to come from somewhere. But relative to them, right? If you look at how they manage the tax system and what we are doing, it is in two different worlds.
Honorable Atuforsun said that if you hadn't gone in to cut the tariffs, put in subsidies on all those things, it could have taken care of these costs in the energy sector.
We are saying that
what the problem
it wasn't only a problem of cutting down on tariffs. It is not only a problem of cutting down on tariffs. We are talking about this take or pay or pay agreements. These PPAs that we inherited, that is costing us $1 billion. If these PPAs were not costing $1 billion and they were costing in the ranges of 200 million, that would have freed up another $800 million for the roads to be fixed, another $800 million for social services, another $800 million for other social intervention.
One of the men who was doing his tenure, we had a lot of these contracts being signed. Honorable, they are saying that now who caused some? This problem that we are facing in the energy sector is because you signed frivolous contracts, and now we have to deal with it.
So which ones are the frivolous contracts? Just asking which one. You should just give us one or two.
No, several of them. If you can respond generally.
There's no frivolous contract.
In quotes, questionable contract, let's say,
so
that we are paying the take or pay.
Which ones?
Let's deal with the general issues of all those contracts.
So let me, generally, that's a false claim.
Okay.
That is untrue.
Why?
These are PPAs that were signed. Let me tell you, Buidam, that was signed under them. Whether you sell the power or not, we pay for the cost of Buidam, don't we? Ask them, Buidam at Bui, we pay with our cocoa proceeds, whether you sell that power or not. So this whole issue of it's a take or pay is completely false and it's a sham.
It's a normal practice in the industry.
It's a normal practice with IPPs because the IPPs go for a facility to come and construct it. And to the extent that they are ready for you to buy, you must give them what you call capacity charges. That is to say when they are available and you don't offtake it. But which are the plans we are talking of? Car power. Are we not talking of AXA? Are we not talking of Ameri? You inherited them from us. How come during our time we were able to pay, but during your time you cannot pay? It's due to bad management practices. It's due to gross incompetence on the part of the MPP. They have been in power for 2.5 years. What has changed this year? How come they didn't tell us that debt existed last year? That debt existed last 2 years. It's only this year that all of a sudden they have realized that there's a certain debt that ought to be paid. It is simply because they are not managing the revenues well. Go and read the budget itself. The minister admits that largely it's due to MMDS not paying for the power they consume.
So that's the problem.
So let me tell you that it's due to bad policies, it's due to incompetence, and a gross mismanagement of the power. Take access to electricity. Under our regime, we're increasing access to electricity at 5% every year. Under their regime, and let him deny it, they are increasing access at 0.9%, not even up to 1%. So if you have the excess power, you are not increasing assets, you are not exporting power, you have brought Valco on its knees. Valco is running at only one port line. So it's like I have assets, I cannot use the assets, and all you do is to come and charge Ghanaians with these draconian tax increments. 5 different taxes have been increased today. 5 under this administration.
Do you think that going forward, you should take a second look at this whole take-or-pay agreement going forward? Yes, you managed to deal with it under your regime. Maybe someone else cannot do it. Do you think that we should take a second look at it?
Let them tell us which IPPs.
Do you think that going forward we should review those things?
Look, today as we speak, because of the work we did, we don't even need excess power. So this issue of take-or-pay doesn't even come in. It's not an issue today, because unlike the previous time when we had a huge deficit, today we have the power available. We should rather be thinking of how to utilize that power, how to make it more efficient, more responsive, and serve the people of Ghana, and stop this unnecessary complaint. This nagging and complaining would not solve the problem.
You think that they should fix it if it's broken?
Look, let me borrow Akufado's words. If you think the system is broke, fix it. Look, the only reason for all this talk is simply because they want to increase the taxes. That's all. There is no other issue.
Let me get a final thought for us. We get other government.
My honorable colleague is not telling us that it is not true that our installed capacity is in excess of 5,000 megawatts, whilst our peak consumption is in the ranges of 2,700. That leaves that gap. If he is able to dispute those facts, then we can talk about
it. There's a dependable capacity, there's an installed capacity, and there's an available capacity. You don't plan based on your installed capacity in the energy sector. So if the minister comes to tell us of installed capacity, he's grossly misleading us. Can I make my point? You ask of
because of emergencies and all that, look, you will need a margin.
And the margin, can I deal with that for you?
Let's allow him to clear, then we come back to
Widam has an installed capacity of 400, but it has a dependable capacity of only 130 megawatts. So when you are planning, you plan with the 130. You don't plan with the 400. Akosombo has an installed capacity of 1,020. Its dependable capacity is just about 700. So you don't go and lump things and say less that you have an installed capacity of 5,000, a peak demand of 2,700. In 2008, let me put this on record. In 2008, when we had a major doomsday under President Kufuor, our installed capacity was more than 700 megawatts in respect of our peak capacity. Why did we have that doomsday? Please, let's stop this politics and get serious with the matter.
Let me
what you are doing is nothing but
the argument is that it's about bad management. It's not just about the fact that bad contracts were imposed on you, this new administration.
We are telling Ghanaians the figures that we are working with. What is there, what has been installed, what we need, and the excess that we have to pay for, that we don't immediately have use for. That is what we are telling Ghanaians. That is going to cost us over $50 million a month. The people in Akwetima, they need their roads to be fixed. We need to fix the schools. We need to fix the hospitals. Meanwhile, we are paying such huge monies.
So you tax more
for power that we are not using. And if we have to pay, the money will have to come from somewhere. You don't create the problem, and then you are coming to tell us that we are taxing Ghanaians to pay for the problem that you created.
No, but the way forward on this issue, because it appears that someone is saying a different story. What is the way forward?
What he's saying is simple. They have excess capacity.
Way forward.
And so they are taxing Ghanaians to pay for that
way
excess
forward
capacity.
On these power
Even a primary school chap can do that.
Honorable Jinapo,
the way forward, one is honesty. The minister Boachi Ajako and Amewu came to tell us that they've terminated 11 PPAs. Did they not say that? And even told us they've saved 7 billion. Today in this budget, Kenny Foretta is telling us that you've terminated only 2 PPAs. So first of all, let's be honest. Let's be truthful. And let's tell Ghanaians that, look, it was due to the politicization of the energy sector that has brought us this far. So that collectively, we can then discuss, one, how to utilize this so-called excess capacity in terms of adding on more, in terms of, it's real.
Let's allow him to wrap up and we wrap up on this.
So-called, you've got to take into capacity.
Fine. Honorable Jinapo, go ahead and let's wrap it up.
Let us be honest. Let's sit around the table. Let us deal with the issues, because I can assure you, despite these huge astronomical 5 increments that they have made, they are still going to have challenges. Until they deal with the root cause of the challenge, increasing taxes will not solve the problem. Thank you.
Way forward.
We didn't just get up to increase taxes. We are faced with unique challenges, and we think that we need to pay more. Look, today, with the nature of our economy and what we do, our tax revenues relative to the size of our economy, it's about 12%. Other countries in the sub-region with comparative economies are doing in excess of 20%. It means that there is some 8% gap that needs to be filled. And if we need to pay for our social services, if we need to pay for our roads, if we need to pay for our education, that 8% needs to be bridged. This is happening in Ivory Coast. It's happening in Benin. It's happening in Togo. We are falling short of our revenue mobilization by 8%, and that is the gap that we will have to bridge. Maybe we need to be more creative in a sort of system we used to.
There's one critical point maybe before I let you go, was the bit about politicization of this sector. What do you make of this charge on this government that maybe we are getting here because paints everybody in the previous administration black, and that is where our challenge is?
I don't think that the minister came in here today to paint the previous administration black. There comes a point where the story has to be told, and everything will be laid bare. And when Ghanaians understand what the issues are, then the government is to be able to move in them and turn them, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are telling them what the real situation with the economy is, what the real situation with our power sector is, and then we can figure out how to move from that point and make some progress.
Let me come to Honorable. Honorable, help me with your full name and designation and where you're coming from. I think Honorable, help me with your full name and designation.
Honorable Kwame Abojan, the ranking member for Road and Transport in Parliament.
Honorable, I mean, I know one area that would be of major interest to you could be the levies on petroleum and taxes because of the impact on the transport sector. What do you make of this approach by the minister to deal with the challenge in that area?
First of all, what I would like to talk about is a victory over the obnoxious luxury vehicle tax that I opposed on the floor all along, which has...
Honorable, I'm trying to get some clarification from the minister. Yeah. They are withdrawing that levy from the House.
Yes.
We've been getting that clear lesson that it has been scrapped. We've had instances in the past where levies have been withdrawn and they were brought back even the same day.
I doubt...
What are you picking up from the ministry?
What I'm picking up is
are they going to totally scrap it?
What I'm picking up is that the tax is so obnoxious, the collection has become too cumbersome, so they are not generating the target. So it is worth nothing. So they probably just get rid of it. But to coming to your...
Scrap it.
Yeah, scrap it totally.
Not withdrawing coming back again.
Coming back when? We are heading towards 2020. Okay. They'll be very brave to be able to bring it back. And I believe they did that simply because President Mahama said if they don't, in 2021, if he gets elected, he's going to remove it. Yeah. I sincerely believe that tax was very unfair and completely unnecessary because it doesn't even generate much revenue. But to the main point of the issue about the sector, I'm surprised this government that says that the NDC overinvested in the energy sector to the extent that they were claiming we have overcapacity in the sector, all of a sudden can't even deal with the existing capacity. A government that promised to actually get rid of ESLA, rather turned around, shamefully, sustained it, prolonged the tenure, and now are ready to pile more hardship on people by increasing that by 20% on average in terms of fuel.
I was asking your other colleague as well. So what is the way forward on this? That you object to these levies. What are the other ways to deal with the challenges in these rising debts in this sector to deal with it right now? What are you going to propose?
We can start by efficiency savings. The size of
and would that bring in enough revenue?
Oh, let me tell you, you add the pennies to get to some money.
Okay.
The size of this government is totally unnecessary. All these government officials, if you cut them down by at least 2/3, can make some savings. Secondly, some of the expenditure lines don't make sense. Why is government telling us that just because they pay about 3 billion Ghana cedi for free SHS, that is the reason that they have to neglect even maintenance on existing road to the extent that we have gotten the worst condition of road across the country? Are you not surprised that the minister could even tell you one single road completed by half of the term when he promised to give in the road ministry over 1 billion Ghana cedi? Can he tell us how much he actually gave them? They did nothing.
But can we establish that was because of the free SHS? Yes. That is why these infrastructure projects are suffering. Because there were clear allocations in the budget.
Exactly, but anytime you
we cannot reduce it to
anytime you speak to them, they tell you because we are doing free SHS, everything has to come. Exactly. Projects. But we know it's just about 3 billion. And I'm saying that when you have a country that we have increased our oil production, you are getting more revenue from oil. ESLA was supposed to be giving you over 3 billion. On what account do you come to the people of this country to pile more debt? It's simply because you've been very negligent, you've been very insensitive, and you are just squandering the wealth of this country.
No, but let me come to the bits about, finally, before I let you go.
Yes.
On those taxes that have been placed
yes.
on the petroleum or the price build-up.
Yes.
Already they were even pushed for us to move away some of the taxes.
Yes.
Now it is clear that the taxes are going to go up.
Yes.
For you, what do you envisage, since this is your sector that you supervise?
Well, I expect that on average, transport fares will have to go up, because don't forget, the exchange rate differentials are affecting parts on the market, car parts on the market. It's unlikely that motorists would absorb this level of increase. A 20% on average increase on fuel on ESLA, I don't know how drivers could absorb it. So sadly, we are going to see a situation where, running towards the end of the year, taxes will have to be increased, because government is going to promise that when you do this, you see a road fix. But we know the gap created is such that they will not be able to close it. And so you are not going to see any improvement on the road sector. You notice that the minister even ignored two sectors. He never said anything about aviation, never said anything about transportation sector. Completely out, because they did nothing about those sectors. Very shameful budget.
Let me come to another member of parliament for help with your full name and the constituency that you are representing, Honorable.
My name is Daniel Ochem Abwaje, MP for Bantama.
So, Bantama MP, the accusation from your other members from the House is that you're deceiving Ghanaians. You promised Ghanaians a lot of things, but now you're reneging on those promises. What do you have to tell them?
There is no, what do you call it? Our friends in NDC have just been exposed.
Exposed that you said you moved from taxation to production, and there are more taxes now?
If you really listen to the minister carefully, what is causing potential the increase we had in the energy levy, and what is causing the increase in the taxes, communication taxes, from 6 to 9%. It's basically as a result of the misarrangements and the pay and take arrangements that we inherited from our friends.
But they are saying that they managed it. NDC, the previous administration is saying that under their tenure, they did manage these contracts. Why are you struggling to do the same?
How did they manage?
They cited instances where the Kufuor administration, there was a similar arrangement.
No, to what end? Yeah. When NDC was managing with those debts, those levels of incompetence displayed in those arrangements, the PPAs, where you and I are paying about almost $600 million a year. What was happening to the economy? GDP was falling from 9.1 to 3.4%.
But still under your tenure, we've seen the public debt has shot up.
It is not the effort, but the results. When NDC was managing at that rate, what did you see with respect to budget deficit? 9.3%. What did we see with inflation? 15.4%. What did you see with policy rate? 25.5%. Those were the results of their efforts. Incompetence. Let me tell you what happened. So when we came to power, we knew this issue was there. We promised the people of Ghana that they will have light, they will have power. We're going to grow the economy. We promised many things, which we are doing. What we had to do was first to be able to stabilize the economy. We left the IMF through prudent management of the economy and making sure that we spent and borrowed responsibly. We left the IMF. I'm coming. We had gone, I was there, in Washington, D.C., during the spring meetings. One of the issues we raised was about the fact that we have pay and take system, which is costing us $600 million a year. Because of pay or take capacities we don't need. About 2,300 megawatt of capacity we don't need. We are paying for it. So what we were trying to say, and they said they will intervene. They will help us. Because if you just came and say, I'm going to just cut it, I won't pay, you will lose your reputation as a nation. So you have to negotiate gradually to get to a point where...
Honorable, just finally, before I let you go, my argument is that you believe that you have taken those right policies that will put the economy on a strong footing.
What we have done, first and foremost, is to be very smart and wise to manage the mess we inherited by stabilizing the economy. One of the things that is causing us is the incompetence and inefficiencies by the PPA arrangements that we are paying about $600 million a year. And then we start the negotiation gradually involving the partners that will make us not look bad in the world. Otherwise, if you have cancelled it right away, the whole world will reject you and your bonds and your everything. The world will look down upon you. So we start negotiations. Now we have come to a point where we say, let's change from pay or take to pay and take to minimize the expenses, and then to be able also to manage the legacy debt. Let's be real with Ghanaians. Let's pay a little bit more, take care of our problems, fix our roads, and do many of the things that people are asking for, which they deserve.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Let me come back to Honorable Adongo. I know the sector which was so much of interest to you was the financial sector. The minister in this mid-year review announced some results of what they said they were doing. Are you satisfied now, or still those concerns that you raised still stands?
Well, if you listen to the minister very carefully, he was trying to speak positivity into what is a dire situation. And I'll give you some numbers. If you take the total assets of the banking sector, okay, it grew from 105 billion at the end of December 2018, okay, and by June 2019, it had increased to 112 billion. That 112 billion, 1.5 billion was an old asset that was taken from Heritage Bank. You remember those two banks that were taken? Yeah. But the bonds were subsequently issued in March. So they don't reflect a growth in total assets for 2019. When you take them out, you get about 6.2 billion growth. We have 23 banks, okay? If you divide, each bank has grown by just a paltry 24 million Ghana cedis. Is that why he's celebrating? You put in 400 million just to generate 24 million of total asset growth?
But Honorable, some will say that in terms of growth, would you be looking for an immediate growth post-cleanup? If you look at deposits, if you look at...
I am not the one saying it. If you had come to say that the numbers would pick up, we won't have this conversation.
Okay.
Because, you see, you cannot measure the success of banking sector cleanup by taking numbers before the cleanup ended. The cleanup ended on the 31st December 2018. So we want to see a stronger banking sector going forward, not going backwards.
But I asked this question because if you look at Bank of Ghana data, before that there were issues with deposits, there were issues with credit growth, liquidity issues as well.
I'm quoting Bank of Ghana data.
If you look at those numbers, Honorable, then you will see that something has picked up.
Which data am I quoting? I'm quoting Bank of Ghana data. Okay. And I'm saying that Bank of Ghana is saying that our total banking assets grew from 105 billion at the end of the cleanup. Now let's see what happens. If you have cleaned up and you have finished, we expect to see confidence reflecting in growth in numbers from January to June, right? Not a period before. Now, when you take January to June, the banks are growing, each bank is growing at an average of 24 million every 6 months. Is that what you call growth? If you take the deposit numbers, deposit numbers are growing in similar fashion. If you take, especially for credit, banks are granting only 20 million every 6 months. And they are sitting on so-called 400 million. What does that tell you? Okay, if you have improved your capital base, we expect to see an improvement in your capital adequacy. Your capital adequacy has declined from 19.3 to 19.1. In fact, it increased to 21% in January. In January, 21%. Now, by the end of June, it has declined to 19.1, worse than the period when you were.
So, Honorable, you think that the growth that has been recorded in the sector doesn't really support
what are the growth?
Those marginal growth?
What I'm saying is that if you want to measure the success of a program, a cleanup program, the program cleanup ended 31st December 2018. So from January, February, March to date, you expect to now see confidence propelling growth in numbers. And I'm saying it is the opposite. By Bank of Ghana's own
numbers have declined.
You see, the numbers he's quoting, they are annualized. So he's taking, for instance, June in 2018, okay, to June 20.
But is he wrong doing those analyzed calculations? He might not be wrong.
In those periods, there were banks, in those periods, you hadn't completed the cleanup. If that's the case, then compare that to 2016 before you started.
So, Honorable, going for it for you, you think that, listen, there's nothing to celebrate.
Talk to banking sector players. They are laying off workers because they can't generate.
So for you think that there is nothing to celebrate about the fact that this cleanup has happened?
Go and do the analysis I'm doing.
I'm just saying that from your view.
You will see that the capital adequacy of our banks have deteriorated. Let me give you one figure. If the banks are sitting on a lot of capital, you expect to see a growth in their liquidity. Okay? Core liquidity to total assets declined from 36% to 30%. Core liquidity to short-term assets declined from 26% to 20%. From December to now, it has declined. So, and you are not seeing any growth in your advances to say that the liquidity has gone into your advances. You are not also seeing growth in your asset to say that the monies have gone into your asset. So where is the money go? It means that the monies came to fill in banks that were already insolvent. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And I get you. So you think that the minister should come again on this issue?
I would like him to sit with me and show me where the growth and the confidence is coming from. The confidence just doesn't exist. And it is a fact that look, the confidence of the business community has declined per Bank of Ghana's own data.
Okay.
I'm not the one proposing those data. And so at the end of the day, all that is gone. And I'm telling you that we now have a financial sector that is in dire crisis. The Securities and Exchange Commission doesn't even have a solution to what it has created, the mess it has created downstream.
But Honorable, some will say that this didn't start just this year, and it started from somewhere. Certain bold measures should have been taken previously before getting to this step. Or the approach, you think that the approach should be different?
Let me tell you, there are different ways of solving a problem. It's not just about... Did you hear what the Bank of Ghana said recently? We are not in a hurry to collapse savings and loans companies. So for you, a cleanup is tantamount to collapsing.
I see.
Are you getting what I'm saying? I'm not the one saying it. They said we are not in a hurry to collapse savings and loans companies. What type of reform is that? That only targets collapse.
Honorable, I thank you so much for it. I'm sorry we have to draw a curtain down on here. So this has been our coverage of the mid-year review of the 2019 budget estimate that a while ago the minister came to Parliament to brief us on those taxes that he says he needs and also those macroeconomic targets that he has to review. My name is George Jaffe from Parliament House. This has been our coverage of the mid-year review of the estimates of the fiscal policy that is 2019.
Right, so that was my colleague George Jaffe coming to you from Parliament, and his last guest, Isaac Adongo. He's a member of Parliament, and they were going through the banking sector reforms that the minister spoke about in his mid-year review. Now I'm going back to my guest, William Demishia. He's a tax consultant, and he's going to give us a breakdown of the new taxes we should expect to see in the economy in the coming days. William, so I see something on petroleum, I see something on communication service tax. Give us some more light.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, if we take what the Minister of Finance said, basically, we are increasing or we are introducing additional taxes because of the problems in the energy sector. Now, if we didn't have the problems in the energy sector, basically, we wouldn't have to introduce new taxes. And you see that the luxury vehicle levy has been said, the minister used the word, it will be withdrawn. Okay, we don't know whether it will be withdrawn and brought about in a package way that broadens the base and reduces the amount, or will be withdrawn entirely. We hope that it is a total scrap as far as that is concerned. Now, for the specific taxes that have been increased, you have the Energy Sector Levies Act. There are components of it, you know, and cumulatively, the proposal is that for every litre of petrol or diesel, 20 pesos would be added. If you take the current cost of a litre of petrol, say about 5.1 or 5.2, you're looking at about 5 cedis 20 pesos coming up as a litre, or 5 cedis 40 pesos coming up as a litre after the 20 pesos has been introduced. Now, for a gallon, it would go up as you do the margin because it's 4.5 liters. That will go up to about 90 pesos on every gallon that you buy. What it simply means is that we'll be paying more for the prices of fuel. And by paying more for the prices of fuel, we are a country that predominantly relies on transport for transporting goods and services, vehicular transport of goods and services from the hinterlands to the city. So all things being equal, we'll be paying more for our goods and services. That is without doubt. I mean, that's a fair analysis to make. It's doubtful that it will be absorbed and then it will not be passed on to the ultimate consumer, because obviously it's a consumption-based tax, and usually the people are able to pass it on to the final consumer. What we expect is an increase in the prices of transport fares, which would translate also to an increase in the prices of goods, because everything is carted by road, and these are some of the things we should naturally expect. And I think that it's good we psych up the minds of Ghanaians for that. If you ask me, I would have preferred another approach, because I have always said that. Another approach such as? I have always said that consumption-based taxes is not the best way to increase revenue, because the fact of the matter is it impoverishes the poor. Those who are poor continue to be made poorer by consumption-based taxes. So I expected that we go back and say that in the 2019 budget, we said we were going to increase revenue by two things: improve tax compliance and reform of the revenue agency. What policies do we put in place? If you read paragraph 93 of the 2019 budget, what policies did we put in place to achieve those things? If we are unable to achieve them, can we put in new policies to be able to achieve them on those two anchors or pillars? If we come by way of increasing those consumption-based taxes, nobody escapes the payment of taxes on petroleum products. No one. Yeah, absolutely no one. Whether you are boarding the bus or boarding a taxi or driving yourself, you end up paying for it. And so for me, yes, it's a broad-based tax, but it ends up increasing the cost of living for most people. And that is one thing that we have to accept
and for a government targeting an inflation rate ND of 8%, Bank of Ghana targeting 6 to 10%, and currently they are within their target band. This has the potential of throwing them out of that inflation target. Will you agree with such an assertion?
I would agree with that assertion. Because you see, the petroleum products have two factors. One, the cost of world market price of crude oil, and two, our exchange rate.
True.
Now, it simply means that we must pray that for the next half of the year, those two factors remain constant. If there's any increase in the price of world crude market price of oil, it simply means we'll be paying more at the pump. If the exchange rate is to worsen, we'll still end up paying more, which will definitely come to affect our inflation target. And remember, when you read the Bank of Ghana's governor's statement, the policy briefing, he said that we are not going to increase or we are not going to decrease the policy rate because of the pressures of inflation. And so these are the realities on the ground. And we are hoping and expecting that as we go along, these factors remain constant, so we don't end up paying more.
Okay. And on the communication service tax, you heard the Honorable Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu mentioning I think you called it hello tax and WhatsApp tax, what not. So many names that were given to it. What can you tell us about that communication service tax?
Well, the communication service tax is imposed under the CST Act on users of electronic communication service. Now, it was 6%. Now, it's on the volume of calls that are made or people who use that service. Now, the minister is proposing, and again, I would wait till we get the final details of what it will be, proposing that we increase it from 6% to 9% and broadening it. Essentially, the notion is that people have started using more data than actually making voice calls. As you say, you can use WhatsApp to make a call, you can receive a call through WhatsApp and all that. So the inkling of government is that we can get some revenue from it. Now, the problem we have is that, are we looking for data penetration and at what cost? Would this constitute a constraint on people accessing data and bringing us the needed revenue? Will people switch from using a lot of data, which would not bring us the needed revenue that we want? These are kind of like assumptions that we have made in the system. I just hope and pray that the assumptions are right, not like the vehicle levy.
Yeah.
I hope the assumptions that we made in
and we'll come to that briefly.
The revenue are right. And if that is correct, it simply means that if the telcos decide not to absorb this 3% increase, they'll have to pass it on to the user. And it means we'll be paying more for data. So
okay, fair there. The luxury vehicle tax, you made a few points on it in your earlier remarks, and I'm just asking myself, what goes into implementing such things? Then, less than a year down the line, if I'm right, has it been more than a year since its implementation?
Since August, so barely a
year.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of on the chopping board again. And I ask myself, so why? Why all this?
It tells us that we did not take into account a lot of the things that we needed to take into account in planning. The projected revenue was about 100 million Ghana cedis. Now we missed it by more than 80%, close to about 80%, missed the target on the back of a number of things. Now, again, as I advocated, government needed revenue. What we could have done was a smaller amount on a broader base. I don't know what, again, as I said, I choose my words carefully. I don't know what the withdrawal will mean.
Yeah.
Because it says the luxury vehicle levy will be withdrawn. Does it mean that we will have another levy come but not be luxury vehicle levy, or that the whole concept of imposing an additional amount tied to roadworthy renewal will be scrapped in its entirety? If the latter is the case, thank God. But it also comes at a cost because we need the revenue. And you see that the attempt is for government to raise the needed revenue to be able to do its work. Because as we go into the numbers, you see that expenditure is projected to shoot up by about 1.6% of GDP, whilst revenue may fall by about 0.01%. It simply means we may have a deficit higher from 4.2% to 4.5%. What that tells me is that if we borrow more this year to finance our budget, next year, the possibility that we'll be paying higher interest as a component on our budget will be high. This year, it was 18.6 billion Ghana cedis, which was about 41% of our tax revenue of 45 billion Ghana cedis. If we borrow more, it simply means next year we may end up budgeting more to pay interest on our debts. True. And we are caught in that vicious cycle of debt. And so these are things that we need to do to realize the needed revenue for government.
Okay, William, your final comments, just 20 seconds. Your total view on all this that has gone on today. 20 seconds.
Government needs revenue. Government must find
no doubt.
Government must find innovative ways to raise the revenue, and key among which is tax compliance. So that is what government should focus on.
So that's it for you. Yes. So my guest, William Demisha, he's a tax consultant, and he's been on our network, JoyNews, and helping us go through today's mid-year budget review coverage. And my name, Philip Manfuri. I want to say a big thank you for your time and for sticking with us.